Shank. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This morning you're joining me for a video that I'm going to title something along the lines of how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Why is that important? Well, I think it's the one thing that stops most people from doing nearly anything that they may want to do. And why do I say this? Because I've been traveling the world for about 10 years now, working incredibly high paying jobs. And most people want to travel and most people want to make money, but most people are afraid to do both when they see what it takes. Or even before they see what it takes, okay? And so, first off, let's just talk about, obviously it makes sense that when you put yourself into a new situation, into the unknown, into unexplored territory, it's like the hero's journey, it really is. You're up here in the top, in the known territory, in the understood, in the ordinary world. And this idea about going somewhere else or going to a new country or going to do something you've never done before, it propels you and then puts you into this unknown territory, the underworld, where you're faced with your own insecurities, where you're faced with your own inadequacies, where you're faced with the things that you try to not see on a daily basis because those are the things that make you unstable. But in instability, it's where we, learn balance, right? So, and it's also where we become valuable in a individual way or an extra way that puts us extraordinary status, right? Rather than just being ordinary, where everybody is valuable. Everybody can be valuable in a dish pit, let's say. A dish pit is where you wash dishes in the back of a restaurant, okay? I always say you can never trust somebody that doesn't know how to run a dish pit, but that's another story. But basically what I'm trying to say is the ability to face those, we can call them fears, or we can call it, the ability to be comfortable in uncomfortability is, I think, one of the greatest strengths that a human can develop, because with this ability, you will be able to evolve endlessly. And what is the point of evolving? Well, some people can say there's no point in evolving and you don't need to, and it's okay to be comfortable and have your life and just do the same thing every day and be the same person. And if that's what you want to do, then I love you for that, and I think you should do that, because if you don't have a drive to do new things or see new things or experience new things, then this video isn't for you, I guess. But I think that it's pretty normal for humans to want to do things, okay? I think that we're here on the earth for a limited amount of time. We know that there's an infinite amount of things that we could do and see, and I kind of feel like most people have somewhat of a draw towards at least one thing, Whether that's going to see the pyramids, or whether that's going to go to a sailing trip around the world, or whether that's going to go drive a NASCAR, or whether that's going to go to Formula One race, or whether that's going to have kids, or whether that's going to get big and strong, or whether that's anything. All these things can cause fear in people, and all of them can elicit a response in their nervous system that tells them, nope, let's not do that. Let's stay in what we know and let's stay in what's safe, okay? And I think that when you look at my life, and you can find it on my YouTube channel. I've talked about everything, but I've always positioned myself in places where I was never the best at what I was doing. I always put myself in new situations where I'm unfamiliar with cultures and customs and languages, and I have to figure things out. And I've been more uncomfortable more times than I can count. But I'll tell you one thing, that it's become something that my nervous system actually likes, and it adapts to instantly and feels good about. But that comes from experience, I think it was Jordan Peterson, he once said like something along the lines of like the exploratory hero is, or like the person who reaches the top of the pinnacle, and the pinnacle is like a dominance hierarchy, he calls it, is the person who gets good at being able to play games instead of person who gets really good at playing one's particular game. And this is what I really feel like in my own life. And I don't mean the idea of a jack of all trades, but I mean the idea of like, you can put me on any competition scale or any kind of dominance hierarchy at anywhere in the world doing any type of thing, and I will be able to compete. And that's been a learned ability, okay? And I value that, because obviously you should value things that your experience has shaped you into, and that's something my experience has shaped me into. But anyway, now down to the nitty-gritty of it. How can someone be comfortable in uncomfortability? And what I would really dial it down to is, it comes down to survival instinct. The reason why I've been able to always be comfortable in uncomfortable situations is because I know that if I'm going to survive, it's a strong word, but if I'm going to survive, I have to be there. I have to be ready. I have to be awake, and I have to be conscious. And the only way that I can be there and be awake and be conscious is by accepting the jitters, accepting the uncomfortability, and then showing up present. Because it's like the idea of like a shocked rabbit when it sees a predator or something. You know, it's like, if you're the rabbit and the predator of new information or a new experience comes and you get scared and you freeze, you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position for the predator. This predator would be the situation that you're trying to, put yourself into, can destroy you. Okay? And the only way that you're going to be able to embrace that experience is by having the survival instinct that tells you, okay, I accept that we're here, I feel anxious, I feel worried, but I need to show up anyway because it's the only way that I'm going to be able to make it through this. And it sounds weird or it sounds intense, but it's really a simple process of grounding yourself in that moment when you start to feel things like anxiety or something like that. And I feel like so many people nowadays, I don't want to get, I was going to say political or medical or philosophical. I don't even know what it would be. But so many people nowadays, will talk about panic attacks and talk about anxiety, and they'll talk about all these overwhelming emotions that come over them that they can't control, that they're just a victim of that symptom that that they have, and they can't help it. That's just who they are. That's just how they are. And I would really, really 100% challenge that if that's what you hold true to be who you are. Not because I think that it's irrelevant, but I think that you are so much stronger than you're giving yourself credit for if you believe that sort of a thing. And let me be a walking testament for that for you, because, there are times when I have done things in the past when I've been incredibly scared and incredibly anxious, like not only traveling, but like, for example, the first time I went on a commercial fishing boat, it was scary, dude. The first time that I went and taught in front of a classroom of 45 kids, I was a teacher in Thailand and I taught 1,200 kids, and I'd have like 30 classes a week of 40 kids. First time I had taught, I was 21. I was so scared. I left that room for the first week. My shirt was completely soaked through. I had to bring like 4 or 5 shirts to work because every class I would just be teaching this lesson and just, oh my God, and I would sweat all through my clothes, and just all sorts of things like this, like no matter what it is, even like talking to that person you see in the coffee shop, or going to the gym or eating healthy food, like all these things, it's the same as anything. It just takes repetition. So putting yourself into the situation where you're going to be uncomfortable, but having the survival instinct to know the only way that I'm going to be able to conquer this moment of me being uncomfortable is by understanding that I'm much more vulnerable if I don't show up, confidently, than if I do show up confidently. And you build that confidence over time by communicating to yourself and showing yourself that it's possible to show up confidently. When I say confidently, you don't have to go up to that girl or that guy and be like super confident. You have to show up on the fishing boat and be like, oh, I'm the best fisherman or something. But you have to show up, be curious, be humble, be willing to learn, and be willing to give it everything you have. Rather than showing up timid, rather than showing up in a state where it's like people are being able to taste, it's palpable how anxious and afraid you are. You need to show up and respect the other people who are engaged in that act or that lifestyle. If you're traveling, for example, and you show up and you're making everybody around you feel, how uncomfortable you are, it's only going to then, make that situation more uncomfortable for you and for everybody around you, right? And same if you're going to go into a new job or you're going to do all these things. Like if you go into it and people can, smell your fear and your anxiousness, it just makes the whole situation, it exasperates what you're trying to escape or what you're afraid of, So how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations is developing this kind of a survival instinct. And I had that developed from a young age because I had a terribly hard childhood with a lot of abuse and a lot of really messed up stuff. So basically, when I went out into the world, I was like, dude, nobody out here is going to beat the shit out of me. Nobody out here is going to do these things to me that are as nearly as bad as what happened to me when I was, young. And obviously this is my own trauma and this is my own kind of learning process that I have to go through now of like, there's another side of being comfortable and uncomfortability, which is, what I'm dealing with and all those types of things. But you don't have to have a traumatic childhood, obviously, to be able to do what I'm doing. It's just a matter of pattern recognition, of, putting yourself into the situation and adapting. And the more that you do that, the more you'll see that you're capable, and the bigger challenges and risks and hopefully dreams and passions you'll be able to go after and uncover in yourself. So I think that's important because it just stops so many people from living a bigger life that they might want to live. So if that happens to be you, I hope you get some value from this video, and if not, that's all right. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Peace.